So I'm sorry for the delay. I hope you can clearly get me now. We will begin streaming shortly. So I'm sorry for the delay. I hope you can clearly. So if you have any questions, you can put it on the chat. We will be using the chat to communicate during this presentation. So I'm using some fictitious data here for a baseline survey done in Uasin County. It is some kind of data that was collected about cows per farmer. So this kind of data is what we will use to try and generate the pivot tables. So I hope can someone put on the chat whether they are you can clearly get me. Please put the chat on your screen. I hope my microphone is doing well. Actually, I'm recording this video as we speak, so I'm expecting that everyone will be able to follow later if you're not able to join in right now. So this kind of data, let's go through the kind of data that we have here. We have data that contains the counties, the sub-county, the ward, the extension officer code, the farmer's names, that is first name, middle name, and the surname. And we have total cows, number of bulls, number of oxen, number of calves, dairy cows currently producing, and then the average daily milk production per day in liters. So we want to generate pivot tables using this kind of data. What we are interested in, first of all, is the summary of the total cows in the county. So to quickly do that, we will select this region where we have data. So to select, there are so many options. You can click on the cell to your left, topmost section of your data, hold down control and shift, then use your left arrow to move to the end. Then by holding down the control and shift again, plus the down arrow. So that takes you to the last section of the dataset. So you will be able to select the entire region where the data covers. Then if you want to generate a pivot table, then you go to insert menu. So in the insert menu, we have so many options. One of the options to your left is the pivot table. So if you click on the pivot table, you're given this dialog box with the title Create Pivot Table. So you're given a chance to choose if you had not chosen the region. So for us, we already selected the region that forms the source of our data. Then you are provided other options like would you want to have this in a new worksheet, or do you want to have it in an existing worksheet? So in most cases, we want to generate a new worksheet. And there's another option down there that we don't usually use, and not unless we are using the Power Pivot. So that is another advanced level where we will need to study how Power Pivot works. So we will leave this section here unchecked. That is, add this data to the data model. So we will not be using that because we are not using the Power Pivot. Then after making this, you can use the default settings as it is right now, which I recommend. It creates a new worksheet, and already the region where we are using the data is selected, so we can click OK. So when you click OK, there is a new sheet created. There will be a region to your left. In most cases, it has the name pivot table 1, if that is the first pivot table that you're creating. And then this is the region where eventually your summaries will be showing. And to your left, we have a section called pivot table fields. When this kind of pivot table creation window is visible, there are two additional tabs that comes at the top as menus or additional ribbons. So these sections where we have options, we call these ribbons. So you will have analyze and you have design. So these two always appear when we select the pivot table. If I select outside the pivot table like this, it disappears. So is to the pivot table fields that were showing to my right. So for it to show, I will click back into the region. It comes back. Sometimes you will find that these pivot table fields is not visible. That is, if you intentionally or by mistake closed it like that. So if you want to bring it back, for you to bring it back, you need to go to Analyze, then go to this section here to your right where you have the field list. So if you click on the field list, then your pivot table fields panel will show. So this pivot table fields panel has got 4 regions. We have the topmost region where you have the heading of the column showing. So like I had shown you the variables that we have in the data set. So we have the county, sub-county, the ward, and all these other details. Then you have down here 4 sections. We have the filter to the topmost left. We have columns to the topmost right. Then at the bottom we have the rows, that is bottom left, and then bottom right we have the values. So these sections we will use them accordingly. So in this case we said we want to know the total number of cows in the county, so we will pick the county to form our rows. So when you drop it, you will see that we have, since in the data set we have only one county, then one county will be showing. Then the other thing is I want to get a total number of total cows. So I'll pick this and drop it there and make sure that it is actually doing the arithmetic that we want. Sometimes we can change the kind of calculations that we are doing. So these are the options. We have sum, we have count, we have average, we have maximum, we have mean, we have product, we have count numbers, we have all these other options. So in this case, we're interested in the summation of the number. So we will choose sum. And let me expand this so that we are able to see the full name. So that is how we managed to generate this summary. So the total summary for this county is 8,140 cows. Let's say we want to get another summary that gives us the counties, the sub-counties that is. So we may decide to duplicate this. I just copy paste it somewhere. Then rather than having the county here, I will drop it out and drop in the sub county. So since the settings are the same, that is, we are interested in the summation of the figure on the total cows, then you will see that we have the same figure here. So the total for the county is 8,140, and when you sum up, if we divide it by sub-counting, then we have the same number. But now in this case, we have more details, where we can say the first sub-county has 1,550, the following one having 491. So if in this case, if you are trying to assign extension officers, then this kind of a summary would be very useful for you, because in a nutshell, in a quick glance of data, you will be able to see the high volume sub-counties, the sub-counties that has got more cows, and in most it should be appropriate or prudent to assign or make sure that this extension of SARS are enough as per the number of cows. And then in using this kind of data, you may want to find out why in a sub-county that has very few cows, what is the problem? Or could it be that this county is in a town setup, or is this county in does it have very serious problem in terms of keeping animals, or do they have enough education on how to keep the dairy animals? So this kind of data is really, at a glance, we have that data. So since our objective was to find a way of generating kind of a dashboard, so in a nutshell, pivot tables are just created like this. I know in most cases when you drop in a value like number of bulls into the column, so if you drop in like that, the default value when you're dealing with numbers only will be the default calculation function will be sum. But in other cases, you may wonder why your data in some situations do not do not show the sum as the default. Let me try and see if I have the same problem somewhere. Yeah. So when you come to, like for example, the number of oxen, when I pull in into the region of values, this particular column, the default function here will be count. Not that I did any changes, but it is by default. When I bring it in like this, you will see that the function being used is count. This is one common problem, especially when you're dealing with a huge data set and you want such that all the columns default to a sum, because sum is the most used kind of function. So for you to, this kind of a problem comes out through what I'm calling data cleaning issues. If you look at this data here, if let me just have a filter. So if I check through this kind of data, you will find that we have blanks. So this kind of blanks, if we look at it keenly, you will find that these spaces are not actually empty, making this column look like we have a mix of numbers and characters. So when we have a mix of numbers and characters in a field, in a variable, then Excel has been designed to use count as a default function to to handle that kind of variable. So in this case, we will just try and find out whether we have anything on those cells, and then let's bring it in once again and see whether we have solved the problem. So not yet, we have not solved the problem, but the best solution to this kind of a problem is to make sure that any blank spaces can be set to a value like 0. So what you could do is just select the blank, then select the region, put in on the formula bar 0, then by holding down Control Enter, you're able to fill in all those spaces at once. So that is by filtering. The other way is to, without filtering, is by selecting the entire column from top to bottom, then use what you're calling select. You go to find and select in your home tab, in your home ribbon, then select blanks on this go to special dialog box, then click OK. So when you click like that, only the blank spaces are selected. So for you to fill in or to put in a 0, you go to your formula bar like this, put in a 0, then hold down Control and Enter to pre-populate all these blank spaces with a 0. So that is how quickly you could solve the problem. Then let's go back to our table, remove this. Let's see if we have sorted the problem. So when I bring it back now, you will see that it defaults to a sum of number of auxins. So just wondering whether everyone is able to follow. So I can see Njoroge is online. So if you can hear me, please respond on the chat. I'm really interested to know who is able to follow. Maina. Uh-huh. So Kanina, I don't know whether you're online. So this is how you can clean up your data. So let's go ahead and clean up all the blanks, just in case we have any blanks on these regions. So just select through, go to find and select, then go to special, click on the blanks. So no cells were found, so then the data is okay. So that is how I will quickly make sure that the data is clean. So using this data, we want to quickly generate some dashboards. So the kind of dashboard that I want us to look at is the one that can give us two levels of view of data, where we have the county and then we have the ward. So for the county and the ward, for us to achieve such kind of a dashboard, we will need to have one or more than one pivot table. So and also we need to structure differently this particular kind of pivot table. So to begin with, just so as it can give us some kind of a recap on how to generate a pivot table, I'll do the control. I'll select column A2, control shift, and then left arrow. I will do control shift down arrow to select everything. Then I'll go to insert pivot tables, create a new Excel sheet. So I will bring in total cows, number of bulls, oxen. I'll make sure all these variables with data are reflected. So then this is the average. So actually that's it. So on the filters, we will be having the county, sub-county, and the ward. So that when we choose, actually this one is not necessary because actually we only have one county, so that will not help in any way. So let's see. Our pivot table is now drifting as expected. So we want to build a kind of a dashboard that is utilizing this kind of data. So we can create a pivot chart. So this kind of pivot chart is so I'm trying to look for good layout for this kind of a presentation. So okay, I think this is the best can come up with. Then you can do a little bit of cleanup. So what you do is just come here, say hide all field buttons on the charts. So that looks a little bit clean. Looking at this data, it doesn't make a lot of, it's not communicating. So let's find a better way of presenting it. So what I'm interested in is total cows. Going down, we have the bulls, we have oxen, we have calves, we have dairy cows, then we have currently producing what do we call it? What do we call it? Let's say lactating cows. So that kind of statistics is what we want. Then we say total here or value. So so all cows. So I would want to have a value here. So this is a kind of summary. So I'm trying to utilize one of the functions in used in Pivot to extract data. So it seems we have a problem. So that is get pivot. Actually, the other thing we can do, rather than doing all that, we can say this equals to cell A6. Then this one is B6. That one is C6. This one is D6. This other one is E6. Then we have F6. So I need to do equal to sign. Equal to sign. Equal to sign. So this is a kind of summary that I can get from that table. So using this, I'm sure we are going to generate. Yeah, this is a nice one. Good table. So summary of the survey. So that's a summary expected. So summary of summary, can call it summary. Of course, you need to have a meaningful heading, then we can still enhance the table, the chart by putting in values. We can as well add table below it if we need it. If we don't, then so this is a table that we are interested in to form a part of our dashboard. So let's create section for dashboard. We say dashboard. So dashboard there. And then we copy this, bring it here. So that is overall. If you look at this, if I remove the filter here, you will notice that we have a total of 8,140 cows, 207 bulls, 196 oxen, 3,184 calves, dairy cows 4,553, of which 4,272 are lactating. So that is a summary from the table. So the other thing that is the main agenda of this training is how to use slicers to help us navigate through this kind of a summary. So to introduce slicers, you will select on the pivot table, anywhere within the pivot table, then go to slicers. So you will choose the kind of slicers you want. So I would be interested in the subcounty, the word, and the extension of SAS. So you will see when you click on them, it just comes out like that. So you can format the way you want this kind of slicers. To format them, when you select any of these slicers, you will notice that there is a new ribbon called options. So with this new ribbon, you're able to change the colors. You're able to maneuver through with all those other things. The most important part is laying the layout for this. For example, I may want to have 2 columns. For example, if I want to make it horizontal, then and neat and compact, I would have something like that. For this one, I may need something similar, so that when I arrange them at the top of the dashboard table, it can neatly fit in. So for this one, you can squash them as much as possible, depending on the region that you want to put them. Then you will, as you can see, this thing is coming out nicely like this. So we may end up having this kind of a layout so for me to use them in my dashboard, I'll click on one of them, hold down shift, select all of them, then either copy or cut. So for me, I'm using cut in this case because I don't want to maintain them in the other section. Then when I get to this point, I will rearrange them nicely, depending on how you want them to look. Maybe in this case, we want to start with the county. On this end, we have the ward. Then we have. There's one thing that slicers, when you want to use one slicer that controls the other, and it only controls, in this case we have only one pivot table. In some other cases we want a slicer that drives several pivot tables. For example, let's say I had another pivot table that was summarizing the average daily milk production, for example. So I would put in something like that. Have that one, and then have the same filters just like what we have there. So you can have all those showing. The average milk production in a day is 53,425 in this case. So when you come to the dashboard, let's say we are interested in displaying this particular value in a nicely shaped, let's say we have this kind of a dashboard here. can still stretch this and squash them a little so that it looks a little bit well arranged here. I can still squash this one so that I have a one-liner. Sometimes I may not need to show header for purposes of minimizing space. So I think that's it. I've squashed it enough. I think this kind of display is good enough for now. So let me arrange my chart here. Let's say in this chart I'm interested in displaying in a nice way the average milk production, so that while we are looking at the summary, we can as well look at the production from the lactating cows at that particular level that we are looking at. So let's introduce some nice shape. So we will have a shape that looks like this. So let's give it a very nice effect. Let's have that color. Then we have something like this. Want to have it nicely looking, something like that, and then we have to put the value inside there. So we can do edit text, and then go back to our pivot table. Then we select. So it looks like we have a problem there. So actually we shouldn't use functions in this case. You can directly reference a cell. For example, this is A6. So if I go to A6, so I'm able to show, then I can nicely present this. Can actually change to a lot of things. Change the font. Change the font. Change. You can also change the color. So depending on your preference, I know you can do a better job than me. So that is how it's showing now. So when you want to do the formatting in terms of putting the comma, you will go back to your source of the values, change it from there, then you have something nice to show there. So this kind of data will, as you can see, if I click on these slicers, the number remains 53,000. So there is one thing that we need to do so that the summary and this value on this nicely displaying shape will move together. So what we need to do is do what we call so you'll select on the slicer, go to options, and then go to report connections. So you will see that this slicer is only connected to one pivot table. It is connected to one pivot table. So so if I connect this, you will see that I will also connect this one. So click on this. This is the other shortcuts for connect. So immediately I select where we have a filter. Immediately I select on a different value, you see that this is dynamically changing, and that is exactly the behavior we were looking for. So as you can see, you can now be able to run this dashboard. So the other thing is that to avoid any confusion, like for example, the reason why we don't have data here is the combination of filters that we've put in. We've put in cases as the sub-county, and we've selected Ainapkoi on this other side in a different sub-county. So in which is in a different sub-county, giving us no data at all on the summaries. So to avoid this kind of a scenario, we will adjust some of the slicer settings where we are saying hide items with no data. So if you hide those ones, that is how it looks like. So next time you will not be able to do the kind of filters that do not give us data, where you can choose a sub-county and a ward that is not in the same sub-county, giving us no data. So by just hiding data that is not, by checking this on the slicer settings, these hide items with no data, then we'll be in a position to actually hide what we don't need. And in this case, we can still crank up the space. Now that when we choose one value, we are given margin become space to so that is it. I think this is what we wanted to achieve for today. I'm sure most of you did not manage to join me in this live streaming, but one thing I can assure you is that this video will be uploaded, it will be available on my channel, so you will be able to review it, replay it over and over until you have the concept with you. So thank you. I think we are now to the end of the presentation. I've not seen any chat queries. I've not seen any questions. So I would assume that if there are any, you will do the comments below the video when I upload. Thank you. So thank you. Next time we'll be having another challenge, and that challenge would be suggested by the team. So feel free to float in any issues. If you still need some guidance on how to generate these kind of dashboards, I'm really available. Feel free to, if this video is helpful to you, click on the thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, so that anytime I post any new videos, you will be in a position to be notified of the new videos. Thank you.